I'm so fired up. It feels like the old days, but it's even better than the old days because of this, because the medium exchange people and the like superior savings technology people are like finally working together to dunk on the suits together. And here's an example of this, like twice already this morning, suits have retorted back to whatever the Bitcoin tweet was with, well, how do I buy something with it? How do I buy something with it? And now multiple people are posting screenshots of how to do it at Walmart. I did that at a brewery yesterday, and that's what it takes. We can't let suits or people that are allegiant to the establishment or people that are just misinformed for whatever reason continue to just use the how do I buy something with it as such just easy retort to just get out of any and all arguments, okay? All of your stuff that you know in your head about like why Bitcoin is superior money and all of the Austrian economics and all of the everything about everything, it's all there and it's all true. But if someone hits you with how do I buy something with it, you just tell them, okay? That is not them having high time preference or whatever these like podcast phrases are. That's them literally being like, how do I use it as my money? How do I switch to your team and stop using dollars? There's not a one size fits all method for orange pilling. There's not one message that's going to fit every single one of your friends and everyone that you know, okay? And that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying that my style of talking or whatever is going to orange pill all your friends. I'm not advocating for that. I'm not advocating to lead with medium exchange every time. What I'm simply highlighting is I think this is one main way that a lot of people get tripped up. A lot of people know a lot of information and can talk to the ends of the earth about the like tech side of Bitcoin and about the very like macroeconomic side of Bitcoin, but then they get hit with like a normie friend just asking you like a valid, legitimate question of how do I use it as my money, people get tripped up in the day-to-day. And so for you to continue evolving with your Bitcoin understanding and continuing to push forward with being an early adopter and being a pioneer of switching to Bitcoin, like switching the world to Bitcoin, you yourself should be able to answer that simple question for people. They don't want a long-winded answer about economics. They just want to know, hey, sounds awesome. How do I use it as my money? And vice versa. If you're talking to someone who's asking you about the ETF, then just talk to them about the ETF. Just talk about how it is a great investment. And it's probably better than the stocks that you're picking because of XYZ. You don't have to then try to switch that person into like owning Bitcoin in their own wallet, like immediately right off that conversation. Just let the Bitcoin name ID seep into society. Just let the concept of Bitcoin as superior store of value, superior medium of exchange, as a corporate L2 ETF, just seep into society and continue to ingrain itself. That's how it wins, just by slow rolling into every aspect of kind of like normie life. And that's good. Like, we want it to be so normalized and so almost boring that it's just so obvious that it's here, that then when you see a bar or restaurant in your area like fly the Bitcoin sticker for the first time, you're just like, oh, of course there's other people walking around my city that have switched to Bitcoin the same way I have. Oh, and look, here's another one too. Here's a whole nother angle on this too. Primarily I've been talking about like normies, right? Or like people that aren't into Bitcoin, are into crypto, and how to talk to them about it. But there's been a resurgence of how like Bitcoiners and like crypto enthusiasts talk to each other as well. And I think that's so awesome as well, because we kind of like reach this loggerheads of just like shit coins and like anti-tokens, like all this stuff. But I think there's kind of a refreshed like middle lane that's coming with like Bitcoin kind of L2s and Bitcoin smart contracts and Bitcoin like programmability is like kind of having a resurgence. And that this whole thesis of like, oh, the best stuff from crypto is going to come to Bitcoin is kind of happening. Like, you're starting to see the beginnings of that. So I think we're going to see more productive conversations across people that want kind of programmability and just like interesting like crypto use cases, and people that are like very fired up about like Bitcoin versus the dollar and all those things. And I'll admit, like on that spectrum, like Bitcoin versus the dollar is like 80% of what I talk about, 90% of what I talk about. That's 100% what I enjoy talking about more. But having the ability to talk about crypto use cases replacing legacy world use cases, and programmability and smart contracts replacing legacy world contracts, that's awesome. Like, that is cool. Like, that is a natural like kind of growth out of taking the money production away from the state, would be taking like contracts and putting them into software, making them open so that people can see it. Like, that is positive. And so having those people be able to get on the same page about like Bitcoin versus fiat is also then important, because here's the thing. A lot of times crypto people like to talk about the use of stable coins and how like stable coins are like growing or whatever. But like, dude, like no, like Bitcoin is better than stablecoins to me. Like we can talk about how like in the niches, like it's positive and it's good and it's a good transitionary tool, and I'm down for all of that. Totally down for all of that. But zooming way out in the broader scheme of things, like having Bitcoin replace dollars both on blockchains and not on blockchains is good. Like that's still end game, final vision, good. And I think we're having a resurgence of the ability for kind of, again, crypto enthusiasts and Bitcoiners to like talk to each other about that. What I also like doing with people, or being able to do with people, is switch it up between talking about kind of the macro like view of the entire world and big picture of what's happening in the world, and then going super micro into like what I can control as an individual, what I can control as my family, and what I can control with like the stores and restaurants that I go to in my area. And being able to ping pong between those two gives you so much variance of where, if you're kind of backed into like a verbal jujitsu corner, like with someone who's just like really big, like think boy of just like, this is too impossible, just like the bell curve, like bell curve. You're just talking with the classic like middle person, high, like middle IQ person. Being able to bounce back and forth between macro and micro is super helpful, because what I like doing is, say someone just like can't wrap their head around, they're just like, the dollar is too big, like the network effects of just how it works, and the US government will never allow it, and they're just like, they can't wrap their head around like that happening. Like there's a guy on Twitter this morning that was just like, Social Security like will never change, it just can't change, they just can't wrap their head around it. Then just go, you know what, what I can control is right here. And then you go right here. Yesterday in my area, I met a business owner and I bought a beer with Bitcoin. And that is better than dollars, because me personally owning Bitcoin instead of dollars is better for my own life personally. And that business owner receiving Bitcoin instead of using a credit card is physically better for his business. And I know that that happened yesterday. That physically happened yesterday. And so whatever your middle curve meme is of not understanding and not being able to comprehend how the world is changing because the old guard is just too strong, it's just too strong. Well, you know what? In my micro life, like my micro life of what I can control, like right here that you're looking at, has been made better by using Bitcoin instead of using dollars, period. And then you just bring it all the way down the micro and you just talk about that. And same thing, if someone's like, hey, like just, you know, my life is like pretty tough right now, like I just don't have a lot of surplus, like I get what you're saying, but it's just like, that feels really hard. Like I struggle with technology, it just feels like really hard. You're talking to someone about that, then you know what? You just pause, you're like, totally get it. Like honestly, totally get it. Like we all have a lot going on in your life. Like there's been times in my life, like totally get it actually. And you know what? That's what's so cool about Bitcoin, is that when or if society, by all like these little parts that are coming together, ends up switching to this, it raises all boats. Like it raises all boats, because fiat money and dollars are just leaking value out of the system, leaking value out of the system, leaking value out of the system. Like part of the reason why, just go to like housing affordability, or just like, again, whatever like main macro thing that's like relevant in your area, like people are using interior square footage real estate as a store of value because they can leverage cheap fiat loans in order to gain that scarce asset, okay? And then that makes it difficult for other people to own homes or whatever, okay? So that is true and is happening. And again, just stick with me on this macro hypothetical. If we used Bitcoin instead of dollars, that would be less likely to happen. And then you can paint the picture of this like future, paint the picture of the future. And that's what I mean about ping ponging back and forth between micro to macro. And like micro, a lot of times it works best going micro. So you can go back up that way, but the best time going micro is because, you know what? Me making that switch in my own life and my own tone actually doesn't rely on anything else happening. Like it actually doesn't rely on any sort of like doomsday scenario or like certain kind of economic conditions, the stock market one, where it actually literally doesn't. It's actually just like upgrading software of anything else in your life. Like you buy a new piece of technology because it can make your life better, or you buy a new gadget for your house or a new gadget for your garage because it makes your life better. Literally, that's the same thing as using Bitcoin instead of dollars. So it's just simply like, this might as well just be a review of like, you know, a review video of like, I've reviewed like my water meter. Like it's just, this water meter is better than this water meter, and here's the reasons. Like classic YouTube, that's what I'm doing. This money is better than this money for these reasons, and you can switch and get it today instead of the one you're using if that's interesting to you.